Well, it's week 4 of the LCS with coverage brought to you by Alienware here on day 2, joined by Peter Dunn from Evil Geniuses. Peter, I guess you've been taking notes from Kyoto because this is a new wave, I believe, that he started of rewarding Academy player performance with LCS games. So I think you had a little bit less of the conversation around your philosophy around it in last night's
Yep.
tweet or statement. So I'm kind of wanting to check in with you on just sort of what was it that had you decide to pick contracts in. Obviously, a very emotional interview from him just now about what it meant for him. So I'm kind of curious where your head's at.
So we to be clear, Contracts has been playing some amount of scrims with the main team since the end of spring. So he had a really good proving grounds. We decided to allow some academy players to have some main team scrim time. And he scrims sometimes. Dennis Svenskeren gets a majority of the scrims, so we knew he was doing pretty well in scrims. We knew we always had the option of bringing him in. Actually, I was planning to start him against a certain team earlier on in week 2, but we went 0-3 in the first week, and I thought we actually played really well when we went 0-3 in that week.
Sure.
And I didn't want Dennis to take the blame, right? Because I think Svenskeren has actually been playing really well this play. He gives a lot inside the game in the comms and in how we approach the game day and things like this, and he's performed individually very well. So it was kind of a bit delayed, his debut, but we knew that this was a good opportunity. Uh, YTSM, I have nothing but respect for Keys, and I knew they were playing last yesterday, so there was very little chance he would have time to properly analyze everything for contracts. So this was the day, because if you don't know contracts to start, or you haven't played against him much, he's going to be very, very strong. He's the kind of guy that you need to analyze a lot, and he's a useful weapon in our armory, I guess you could say.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but during the analyst desk at the start of the day, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but the vibe I was getting from the desk on the broadcast was like, oh, it's interesting that you're seeing this and Immortals, and people were saying, you know what it is? It's like they're testing out these players to see if they can move them up to the LCS. And I'm that is not the way Kyoto has messaged it. Whether or not people want to believe that or whatever, but I'm curious. Is there any truth to that? If is there a world where you are testing them out to see when you can deploy them or whatever?
I mean, yes, for sure we're testing him, but I mean, let's be clear, Dennis is our starter. Come playoffs though, if we have contracts, like if we can pull out contracts after say we have a rough game 1 and we can just pull out contracts, that's like a massive, massive tool in our box. And let's be clear, like Contract is not just some random guy in Academy, right? Contract has been the best jungler in Academy, and you could argue the best player. Maybe you can argue for Isles on Cloud9. Maybe you can argue for Kenvi or for Tenacity on 100 Thieves. But like he is in that discussion as like the number 1 or the number 2 best player in Academy, and he looks like he doesn't belong in Academy. Let's be clear, like when he's playing. Um, and yeah, will we will use him moving forwards. But to be clear, Dennis is going to play the majority of the games
Gotcha.
until the end of the split.
I was talking to somebody this week who felt like it's interesting that this happened because I was again talking about the Immortal stuff previously, and they had suggested to me that you run a pretty big risk when you do something like this because contracts comes in, maybe has this amazing game. What if tomorrow, Dennis comes back, Svenskeren comes back, and has a tough one? And is there a chance, not even just from like the community or whatever, but you might be even risking the trust of the team, his teammates, whenever you do something like this, right? Because maybe they start to think like, well, yesterday when we had Juanito in, things were going great, and now they're not. So I don't know if there's a way to manage that, if you think it's a concern or a risk, because certainly it makes sense to me that something like that could happen.
And I mean, Asian teams do this all the time with their players, right? Like LCK teams do it, LPL teams do it. Why can't LCS teams do it? I mean, let's be clear. I'm fortunate enough to have two of the, what can I say without being crucified on Reddit? Two of the top 6 junglers in North America. Let's be safe, right? In
Sure.
my in my roster. Why would I not use them when I have the option, right? The and they both have very, very distinct, very different styles, very different champion pools. And we scrim with both of them, and they both do well in scrims, right? I mean, why would I not do that, right? Like, what kind of sentimentality is this? However, we have to set the expectations, right? Like, Dennis is still our starter. Dennis is our starter, right? For the rest of the season, he is going to play the majority of the games, right? Doesn't mean we're not going to use one again, but both players come in understanding this, right? Yeah, that's all I have to say.
I have a question for you as a coach. So this stuff gets announced the night before, I believe, in part because you have to submit the players that you're going to field the next day by that night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in traditional sports, there's no, like, to my limited understanding of traditional sports, there's no equivalent of that. In fact, oftentimes you're swapping players in and out during the game. I haven't really thought about this in some time, but is there any reason why you think it would be a bad idea for it to be a thing where you find out when the player goes down to sit in the seat who it is that's going to be competing in that moment?
That would be terrible.
So break it down for me. Why?
Yeah, because especially for jungler, you have to do a lot of prep for how the jungler plays the game, right? Let's be clear, right? Different people have different. A lot of League of Legends is not what you see in game, right? Like,
Sure.
what you see in game is maybe 30%, maybe 40% of what's going on. There's a huge amount of prep. There's scrims. There's preparation, and preparation doesn't mean scouting. It means solo queue prep and strategic prep and that kind of thing, and that would take away a lot of that. It's one of the reasons why I think League of Legends should never have a sixth person. Like what do people call it? Like a eye in the like
the
a
coach on comms during the game. Yeah.
Coach on comms. Like, I think that putting something like that in the game, for instance, would take away from that aspect of the game, right? Which is an important part of what makes League such a fascinating esport, right?
Wouldn't it be so great for you as Evil Geniuses and as somebody who has 2 of the top 6 junglers in the league if you can dynamically swap these folks in? I mean,
No.
what? So you did this. You admitted that you did this in part because of, hey, this is going to be an advantage that we can pull against the TSM coach, right? So wouldn't it be a greater advantage to have it moments before the start?
No, because then I can't prep, right? Like, I don't like, maybe if Contracts played an academy game against Armao this week where he completely destroyed the entire series, right? In academy, maybe if I'd known Armao was playing, maybe he would have played against TL as well, right? So I think this adds a little bit more. It makes best of fives more interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, this is just best of one, right? Like,
but don't you guys all find out at the same, like, you would, in this scenario, you'd be finding out that Armayo is playing at the same time as you're submitting your roster.
Exactly. So we'd already submitted Dennis, and then I saw Armayo was playing, and I was like, that's interesting. maybe we should have put Dennis in against TL instead of Juan in against TL instead of TSM. But no, like in a best of 5, that's where this all comes down to. Like, this is the disadvantage of a best of 1. There are disadvantages to best of 1. I understand why we have the best of 1 format. But this prep that we're doing right now is not for best of 1s, right? Like, it's for best of 5s.
Okay.
Which is what matters at the end of the day.
Fair enough. All right. Other than that, how are things going with EG? You guys are I will admit, on the outside, you guys are a tough team to try to talk about because there's obviously disaster occurring in other places. And then you see 100T sort of emerging up there with Abadage, people speculating on them being the best. And it's tough right now from a narrative perspective for Evil Geniuses, which I know is not what you give a shit about. But so I'm just kind of curious, when you think of where the team is at right now and how it's progressing, what is going through your mind?
So at the point where we choose to promote Danny, the regular season doesn't matter, right? Like, it is all about playoffs. Everything you see us doing, like, yesterday, Nico, I don't think Nico was the best pick to pick last pick, right? To be clear. But Chizuka wants it, fine. Play it. Play it in the best of 1, see what happens, right? All that is at the back of my mind, I do not care about this regular season at all, right? Because let's be realistic, we've just promoted a 17-year-old rookie from amateur, not even from academy. He still has to learn the game. It's really interesting that this game here today, he was doing a lot of shot calling today. He was really feeling it today. Which for a rookie, when you're 90 CS to 60 CS because you have to leash in a bad matchup, is a nightmare. But he's beginning to get it. It's beginning to click right now. Right, but we've already dropped so many games at the start of this regular season. I'm not even thinking about this regular season. All I'm thinking about is how can I prep my team in the best way to do well in best of fives, and that means, playing things like Nico, playing, putting Juan and that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Putting those guys in, and we're going to test our limits, right? Like if you have the opportunity to test your limits in best of ones, test your limits, know what your limits are, and then in playoffs, people will always say it on Jizuke, right? But I just repeat what I say to Jizuke: test your limits now, but know what your limits are by playoffs. Because if you don't know what your limits are by playoffs and you lose us the best of five, that's not acceptable, right? But if you throw a game in a best of one, whatever, like it happens, right? I'd rather you didn't, but
Do you think that the players are able to pick up on that mentality? Because it feels like, especially now that we switched to a situation where we have 50% more games in the summer, people still have not been able to kind of erase the idea that every single game counts. And yes, it does, but then also 80% of the teams end up in the playoffs, right? So I don't know how, if you feel like you've been able to transmit that same philosophy to the players, because I think look, a team is going to feel a lot more confident when they're up at the top of the standings than whenever they're middle or below, right?
I mean, you look at all the EG teams, right? It's really clear what our philosophy is. You look at EG Academy, you look at EG Prodigies, they all play the same way, right? They don't have all the same setups, but they all play, test your limits, push how far you can possibly go, and that's what I want out of my players, right? Obviously, sometimes we push it too far, right? Sometimes we throw games that we shouldn't, that we should win. But how can you push yourself? How can you get better if you're just playing within yourself? How can you play better if you're just playing Oriana and you're just scaling to 35 minutes and hoping the enemy team messes up? Sure, maybe you can do it in North America. Good luck against that one. Like, yeah. I mean, that one are not going to throw the game against you. Like, they're just going to beat you, right? And to me, this is always what I'm thinking at the back of my mind. So I think EG fans that I've interacted with understand we're doing this. I don't think the rest of the league understands, right? Like when so there was a play where Jizuke was on, he was on Lee Sin, and I think it was against Immortals or somebody. I remember they had a Karma, and he jumps in, tries to engage on the mid lane, and then not Karma, Lulu. It was against Lulu. So he's on Lee Sin, he's in the middle of mid lane, we're taking Herald, he jumps in, and Karma, sorry, not Karma, Lulu stuns him immediately, and he dies immediately, right, to Lulu Nocturne, and it looks really, really dumb. But what he's trying to do there is he's trying to jump in, fake to jump in, and then ward hop back, but Nocturne ults, so like he can't click the W because he can't see it anymore, right? And that kind of thing looks really, really dumb in public, and like all the non-EG fans are like, oh no, Jizuke is running it down again, right? But this is limit testing, and this is prep for later on in the playoffs, right? And that is why we allow our players to go and do this kind of thing. It may be frustrating for fans to watch, but to me, it's kind of entertaining. No, you want to see people fight to the death 1v1. That's what League is about, right? League is quite fun, to watch if it's played at a fast pace and
I don't think that's what League is about. I think what League is about is just complaining incessantly about all the teams and the players and how they're not living up to your expectations. We are well over time, so I have to say goodbye to you. But is there anything you want to say to any of the fans out there?
No, just to say thank you very much to EG fans. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for the support that you've shown our players, especially Jizuke when he's going through rough patches, and Danny especially. Like EG fans have been extremely welcome to him. Just want to say thank you. Your support is invaluable. When we're winning, it's great, but especially when times are rough. And we've had some rough games this split. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis, for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having the conversation with me, and thanks for putting contracts in, because I think a lot of people are very happy to see him, especially in that post-game interview. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Listen, TikTok is blowing up right now, and based off my surveys, a lot of you guys don't like TikTok. I create content there. You can follow me at Travis Gafford on TikTok, and it's quite fun. I think you might like it. But for those of you that don't like TikTok, look, if all my sponsors go away, I'm just going to become a full-time TikToker, and that'll be the only way that you can consume any of this content. And that's a warning to you. So please help support my sponsors by clicking the links in the video description, specifically Alienware. They're sponsoring this. And I don't know, the other content as well that's sponsored by different people. Actually, I appreciate when you guys support any of my sponsorship stuff, because I have no issue with people that like do just dancing and stuff on TikTok or other stuff. I don't know. But I don't think anybody wants me to become that. And please support my sponsors.